Why is a 25-year-old Subaru selling for over $300,000? Welcome to Torque Anatomy. Today, we are tearing into a machine that defines peak automotive mythology, the 1998 Subaru Impreza 22B STI. To understand why this car is the absolute holy grail of the tuner world, we have to rewind to the golden era of 1990s rally racing. Picture it. Dirt flying, engines screaming, and a bright blue blur tearing sideways through the dark forests of Finland. That blur was the Subaru World Rally Team, piloted by the legendary, utterly fearless Colin McRae. By 1998, Subaru had just done the impossible. They clinched their third consecutive World Rally Championship manufacturer's title. At the exact same time, the brand was celebrating its 40th anniversary. Subaru knew they could not just bake a cake and call it a day. They needed a monument, a rolling, fire-breathing tribute to their absolute dominance on the world stage. So Subaru Technica International, the mad scientists known as STI, were given the green light to build the ultimate street-legal rally car. The result was the 22B. But here is the critical thing to understand. This wasn't just a standard Impreza with a cheap plastic body kit slapped on. The production process was absolutely intense. Subaru took standard two-door Impreza WRX Type R chassis directly off the main assembly line. But instead of sending them out to the local dealers, they handed them straight over to the tuning wizards at STI. Those engineers completely re-sculpted the car's anatomy. They literally chopped the metal fenders and grafted on massive, aggressive steel wide-body arches, pumping the car's width out by over 3 inches. This wasn't just for looks, it was necessary to house the wider track width and the massive 17-inch BBS forged wheels. It gave the 22B the exact same intimidating wide-hip stance as their actual WRC rally car. Under the hood, they didn't just tweak the computer, they birthed a mechanical legend. They took their proven flat-4 boxer engine and bored it out from 2 liters to 2.2 liters, creating the bespoke EJ22G. It was a closed-deck, heavily turbocharged monster. Officially, Subaru claimed it made 276 horsepower, just to comply with the famous Japanese gentleman's agreement limiting horsepower. But anyone who has ever touched the throttle of a 22B knows that was a massive, glorious lie. It made well over 300 horsepower right out of the box. When Subaru finally unveiled the 22B to the Japanese public in March of 1998, the response was pure chaos. They only produced exactly 400 units for the domestic market. Do you know how long it took for every single one of those cars to sell out? 2 days! Some historians even argued they were completely gone in less than 48 hours, snapped up instantly by absolute fanatics who knew they were looking at history. So what actually makes the 22B tick? Pop the vented aluminum hood and you are staring directly at the beating heart of a rally monster, the legendary EJ22G. This is a 2.2-liter flat-4 boxer engine. Now, if you're new to car anatomy, most standard engines have pistons that move straight up and down. But in a boxer engine, the cylinders lay totally flat. The pistons punch outward, horizontally, exactly like 2 boxers throwing punches at each other in a ring. This design is absolutely brilliant for racing. Because the engine sits so incredibly low in the engine bay, it lowers the entire center of gravity of the car. Because the engine sits so incredibly low in the engine bay, it lowers the entire center of gravity of the car. But STI did not stop there. To make big power, they bolted on an IHI VF23 ball-bearing turbocharger. Think of a turbo as a massive pair of mechanical lungs. It takes the hot, leftover exhaust gas that normally just shoots out the tailpipe and uses it to spin a turbine wheel. That spinning wheel then sucks in massive amounts of fresh, cold air, compresses it, and rams it straight back into the engine. More air means you can burn more fuel, and that creates a massive explosion in the cylinder.
Because this specific turbo used ball bearings instead of standard plain bearings, it had almost zero friction. It spooled up instantly. That meant virtually no turbo lag, giving the driver explosive acceleration the exact second they smashed the gas pedal. It produced 268 pound-feet of torque, tearing up the pavement with violent aggression.
However, making power is completely useless if you cannot put it to the ground. Subaru solved this with an absolutely bulletproof 5-speed manual transmission paired with a twin-plate clutch. A standard street car uses a single friction disc to connect the engine to the wheels. The 22B used two. This allowed the clutch to bite down twice as hard, handling those aggressive, high RPM rally launches without slipping. But the real party trick of the 22B is the all-wheel drive system. It featured the famous driver-controlled center differential, or DCCD. Inside the cabin, right next to the driver, is a little dial. This dial is pure magic. It lets you manually adjust how much power goes to the front wheels versus the rear wheels. Want a stable, grippy ride for a rainstorm? Lock it up and distribute the power evenly. Want to throw the rear end out and slide around a dirt hairpin just like Colin McRae? Roll the dial back, send the power to the rear wheels, and let it rip. You are in total, absolute command of the machine. So, the 22B has a beast of an engine and an indestructible drivetrain. But how does all of that actually feel when you are gripping the wheel on a winding mountain road? Why is this specific car considered the absolute peak of 1990s driving dynamics? When you slide into the cabin, the first thing you notice is the seating position. You sit incredibly low, wrapped in deeply bolstered bucket seats that hold you like a mechanical bear hug. The Momo steering wheel is presented at the exact perfect angle. You do not just sit in a 22B, you physically plug into it. You feel hardwired directly into the chassis. Out on the pavement, the driving dynamics are purely telepathic. Because of that extra engine displacement, 2.2 liters instead of the standard 2 liters, the 22B has incredible low-end muscle. You do not have to wait around for the turbo to spool up just to feel the punch. And when you turn into a tight corner, it does not understeer like a heavy modern vehicle. Thanks to those custom upside-down Bilstein dampers and forged aluminum suspension links, it feels impossibly nimble. But here is what truly separates the 22B from its absolute biggest rival. We have to talk about the eternal war, the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 6, specifically the legendary Tommi Mäkinen edition. The Evo is a brilliant machine. There's absolutely no denying that. It is sharp, aggressive, and relies heavily on its incredibly advanced front-end grip. But the 22B? The 22B is perfectly, beautifully neutral. When you attack a corner, it works both axles in complete harmony, suspending you sweetly right in the middle of the car's pivot point. Furthermore, the Evo was a standard 4-door sedan, and Mitsubishi produced thousands of them. The 22B is a bespoke, hand-built 2-door coupe with real steel wide-body fenders limited to just 400 domestic units. The Subaru is just infinitely more exotic. It is a genuine homologation special built to celebrate true rally dominance. And that brings me to the ultimate question for you guys down in the comments. If you had the keys to both cars sitting right in front of you, the hand-built Subaru 22B STI or the legendary Mitsubishi Evo 6 Tommi Mäkinen edition, which one are you taking to a canyon road and exactly why? Sound off below because I know this debate gets absolutely vicious. Ultimately, the 22B is not just a fast car. It is a mechanical time capsule. It represents a brief, glorious window in automotive history where engineers were given blank checks to build absolute madness. It is the absolute pinnacle of analog driving. There are no heavy battery packs, no intrusive computer nannies, and no fake engine noise pumped through the speakers. It is just pure, unadulterated mechanical violence wrapped in the most iconic wide-body silhouette ever forged in steel. But let us step back from the hype for a second and look at reality. Is the 22B a totally flawless, invincible machine? Absolutely not! At the end of the day, it is still a 25-year-old Subaru, and that comes with a very specific, agonizing set of headaches. First off, let us talk about the interior. You are quite literally paying modern supercar money for a cabin that feels like a cheap plastic toy. The dashboard, the climate vents, the plastic door cards, they rattle, they squeak, and they feel incredibly fragile. Subaru spent every single penny of their budget on the engine, the suspension, and the wide-body chassis. They left absolutely nothing for interior luxury, and you feel it over every single bump. Then you have the absolute nightmare of maintenance and parts scarcity. Yes, the bespoke EJ22G engine is a closed-deck masterpiece, but it is also a highly strung, turbocharged motor from the 1990s. It demands aggressive maintenance, perfect timing belt services, and constant attention. And when something inevitably breaks, you cannot just run down to the local parts store. Unique 22B components are virtually extinct. If you accidentally dent one of those beautiful factory-stamped steel wide-body fenders, good luck. You cannot just order a replacement from a warehouse. You have to hire a master metal fabricator to restore it. Furthermore, while the twin-plate clutch was a fantastic upgrade, that 5-speed manual transmission still carries some of that classic, fragile Subaru DNA. If you brutally launch it at every single stoplight, you will eventually shatter the internal gears into a metallic soup. You have to respect this car. It is a precision racing instrument, not a blunt hammer. Which brings us to the ultimate question, the exact mystery we asked at the very beginning of this episode. Why on earth is a 25-year-old squeaky plastic-filled Subaru selling for well over $300,000 at auction today? The answer is irreversible history. You are not just paying for horsepower or a rare badge. You are paying for the pure, analog soul of the greatest era in motorsport. Modern performance cars are heavy, numb, and totally isolated by miles of computer code. The 22B is the exact opposite. It is a street-legal time machine, connecting you directly to the legacy of Colin McRae, ripping through the dirt forests of the World Rally Championship. It was a one-time, hand-built anomaly, limited to just 400 units, and automotive engineers will never be allowed to build anything like it ever again. You are buying a drivable, fire-breathing piece of mythology. Thank you for tearing into this legend with us today on Torque Anatomy. If you felt the boost on this episode, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share the video with a fellow gearhead. Until next time, keep the RPMs high and the shiny side up.